One, welcome back to COC. Hi, guys.
Hi, everybody.
So we are back with, we're back the day after the new moon. So we have some things to talk about with that, and we'll jump right in. As you know, I don't know if we ever do introductions.
I don't know if we do or not. That's Dahlia. Wait,
Yeah.
or that's Dahlia. I don't know where we land.
Right.
The
And
other
there's
person
Katrina.
is not me, is Dahlia.
And the lovely and wonderful Katrina. So we have both our shops on the East Coast. If this is your on the East and the West Coast, if this is your first time broadcasting with us, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you know when we pop back on every Monday, 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern. And we're just going to shoot the shit and see what happens. I mean, we get into some really philosophical places, some really compassionate places, some really like, what the fuck places. And we're here for all of it. It's so much fun. And we, as always, definitely want to hear from you as part of our community. So, and I am just realizing you mentioned my appearance today, Katrina, and I did not realize how sparkly I was.
You look pretty.
Thank you. Unintended. So the new moon, and how that has impacted. So one of the main points of our conversations, right, is how these things kind of impact our perspective shops, and how that can kind of marry into the collective consciousness. So I would love to see, while we're hashing this out, if you guys have an opportunity to tell us of your new moon experiences. It was yesterday, but that energy lingers. So if you had a weird day today, pop those down in the comments and we'll talk about those too. And if you have any questions, but so the new moon for you, Katrina, what was it like?
Well, our new moon, we do a Santa Muerte veneration.
Yeah.
And so that means that we are kind of passing into the valley of the shadow for our time and spending time with Lady Death and having what is it you call it? La Petite Morte or something like that. I don't speak French, but the little death is what we have, which is actually referring to an orgasm, but who cares? and we but we have our little death where we spend time with her, and it's very reverent. And so that's how we work at the shop. But this particular new moon was really powerful. We were just, also experiencing Lionsgate. Yeah. And if you want to get that lion thing going, that new moon was in Leo. And so lots of lion energy going on. And so I did have some guidelines, if you can indulge me for a little bit, for the best way to optimize this energy. And what happened with me was almost, and we can talk about this later, but it was really transformative. And it was all about the Lion's Gate, which is coming into your own power. You're stepping through the gate to see what's there for you and what comes up next. Number one that I came up with, and this was just off the cuff ideas relating to the new moon in Leo, but also with it, enjoying that Lion's Gate energy. Leo rules the heart and the spine, and that becomes really instrumental in what we're doing with this energy. Now we're looking at least 3 to 5 days after that new moon that energy is going to continue. And so by it being the heart and the spine, you have to check your commitments. Look at what is important. Look at what you're being asked to do, and do not commit to anything you can't give your whole heart to and your whole spirit. If you are doing something, if you're doing a job and you don't love it, it's time to look for another job. If you are in a relationship that you're not invested in, whether it's friendship or romance, you need to make your choices. And if you are even in a life path that maybe your mind is saying this is what I should be doing, but your spirit is like, not so much, I'm not enjoying that, then it's time to make changes. So check your commitments and only commit to things you can give wholeheartedly. Number two.
Can I interject on that? Because I had no idea, I pay attention to the new moon, but the synchronicities are incredible. And you just spoke to commitments and relationships. And I, even leading up to the new moon, I had a lot of revelations with my commitments and my partnership. And I had an opportunity to really fully and recommit to my romantic partner. And, you know, it, for a minute, it was like, and it, just on my side of things, it was, you know, I'm shuffling the Lenormand, and, you know, the snake and the coffin fall out, and I'm like, what the hell,
Ooh,
right?
yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
But, you know, bringing that to the table with a partner that does communicate at a heart level, and the connection that we had, we were able to move through it. And like you said, I mean, the new moon yesterday, we were able to recommit in a way that has been so supportive, so loving, and filled me. It's just kept me going in the chaos of the new
Yeah.
moon. So I just wanted to chime in
Good.
on the synchronicity of that. I love that. So you were saying number two?
Well, I think you're actually going to have a personal investment in all of these. I really do, because you and I tend to click that way. And I've got to admit some ego here, because as I was exploring what that meant to me, that whole idea of that Leo new moon and the Lionsgate, and paralleled it with what I was doing, what I was experiencing, it was so intense that I know it's going to vibrate with you too, because you and I might as well just buy the same life and share it next time. Because it's kind of what, you know, we just tend to vibe together.
Yes.
But yes, Eric and I had a similar situation, but that kind of goes into what I was going to bring up for the second theme.
Yeah.
So I'm going to table that idea.
Okay.
But you're going to love this next thing I wrote down. I've got the list. If you want me to take a picture of it, I can't. Oh, it's backwards. If you want me to take a picture of it, I can, just to show you that it's in writing. I'm not making this up based on what you say. And everybody who's with us, we don't script this.
We didn't have
As
it
you
beforehand. She's
can
surprising me.
tell from how disorganized we are. You're actually at dinner table with us while we're talking mad shit about what happened in our shops. So the next thing I wrote, you're going to love, I wrote, be vulnerable.
Ooh.
We have to be able to be vulnerable with the people that we're close to in order to have solid, organic commitment and connection. And Cancer, just coming out of the time of Cancer, when it's all feel. We're getting into the Leo, which is putting everything out there into the light. And you did that.
Yes. Yes. What? And it was so uncomfortable. So hold on. As a Virgo.
Yeah. Oh, shit. Go, say it.
How do you feel about vulnerability?
It's not my strong point, Dahlia. I'm just going to say, I love without restriction, and I love without conditions. I have trouble being vulnerable without conditions.
Right.
And that
Same.
always compromises our ability to connect and fully immerse in the love.
Yes, in interpersonal relationships, 1000%. I just didn't want to feel crazy by myself. So thank you.
Nope. Very much that idea of, if I am fully vulnerable and don't hold something back, you have the power to destroy me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they feel that. They feel when you're not fully invested, because you're holding back for your own safety. And unfortunately, we don't just, I mean, sure, part of us springs from the womb that way, but
Right.
we also have experiences that create that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it is the only reasoning behind that. You know, you do have semi unbroken Virgos roaming the world that are just like, yeah, you know, no problem. I mean, and anybody, I should
Show
say
me
humans.
I demand you produce one.
Hey, we're going to get, you know, if you're watching the show, just
and you are a unbroken Virgo, please contact us in the comments below.
You know
you're jacked up. Don't pretend you're not.
Right, because as Virgos, we're going to see the deepest part, right, of ourselves and go, no, it's there. That has been quite the journey over the last 18 months, you know, with or without partnership. And there are some things I always reiterate to my folks is there are some things you can't do without a partner, or at least somebody close to you, close enough to destroy you. Wow. And going in and I don't know about you, but it's a constant reminder that yes, they could destroy me, but you know, it can also be that phoenix right? Like sometimes destruction is necessary.
The Tower card,
Yep.
absolutely.
And I've had a lot of little deaths. Not, I mean, we do things, but also
It's a metaphor now.
Amazing things, but in this instance,
Yes.
a lot of little personal deaths to the parts that don't work in a relationship.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that vulnerability is a gift we give somebody that we don't always want to let go of when we're handing it to them. And
keep one hand on the box.
Yeah. Don't take it quite so eagerly. Eric and I have been together for 25 years and been married for 24 years. And still he will say, and sometimes in times of intimacy, I can't feel you. I need to feel you. I can't feel you. And it's uncomfortable being married to an energy worker because they got those little fucking tentacles in there. And if you pull away for a second, they're like, oh, where'd you go?
Now, wait a minute. Because I am with somebody so amazing that, and I couldn't have seen him coming. He immediately in our strife this past new moon recommitment vulnerability thing, he walked into the shop to visit with me and immediately was like, what's wrong? And I hadn't said anything. I had put on my hat. I was like, song and dance, I'm just gonna smile, we'll be fine. And he was like, nope. And he just got his Reiki level 1 attunements. And
damn.
But before that, this was before the attunements. It was crazy. So I don't know, energy worker or, naturally attuned, I don't know. But man, when somebody can read you, and that's how we actually got together, was he pierced through my veil and was like, hey, I noticed this about you. And I was like, you stop that right now.
Yeah, get out. And sometimes, Eric he's an engineer. He's a CT electrical contractor, and he gave all of that up to run the shop with me. He has a guy that he farms all of his stuff out to now, but because he has an engineer brain, he's a problem solver, and which appeals to me as a Virgo, right?
Right.
But at the same time, if I'm starting to feel any ripples of any concern or problem or even frustration, he's like, what's wrong? What's going on? I can tell you, it's like, just give me a minute. I don't even know what I'm frustrated about. Let me work this out. And then an hour later, you still seem upset. What's going on? No, it's okay. I'm just working on some shit. So that vulnerability is sometimes, imposed upon you. Like, we're going to drag the vulnerability out of you.
Yeah.
But even in our friendships, if we are not willing to show up and be present and put some vulnerability on our line, we never have any authentic connection with people.
Yeah. It is. It's well,
and this energy, not all energy, not all Leo moons, but this Lionsgate Leo, in addition to honoring our commitments and galvanizing our commitments, is demanding that we stand up and be vulnerable in our own right as to who we are, and to be willing to give that out there willingly.
And just for clarification's sake, with the space that Crossroads holds, the new moon is a time for shadow work and moving through the darker parts of self.
Absolutely.
Right.
And that's a carryover from the days when I was Wiccan, because we would celebrate on the full moons and go inside ourselves for the new moon meditations and introspection.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was that.
Whole circles of vulnerability. Oh.
Number 3 kind of goes with that as well.
Okay.
And this is a very Leo thing.
Oh.
And for Virgos, this one's a tough one, unless we have Leo aspected strongly in our charts. Oh. I have a Venus in Leo, so this comes out in my relationships. But own your narrative. Whatever your story is, up until this precise moment, whether there are things in it that make you uncomfortable or feel shamed or feel vulnerable about things that you've been in the past, you have to step up and own that and make that part of who you are. But you also have to be extremely dialed into your selling points. What is it that you're bringing to the table in your job, in your relationships? Who are you in this world? And that's really going to get the Leo shine right now.
Wow. You know, and you're an astrologer, right?
Sort of, not a good one.
Okay. I noticed themes with Leo being one of the signs that's like, for as much as people can say they, you know, sort of highlight themselves, they are also the hardest on themselves. And I mean, even a bit rivals Virgo. And so when you say own your narrative and being dialed in, I think about sort of my Leo counterparts that are always like, you know, gosh, you know, I did this thing 15 years ago and I'm still recovering and I was a bad person and how could I possibly deserve? And it's like, I hear you saying own your narrative, and it's like on the one hand, I can kind of envision that's what they're trying to do, but maybe it's in an extreme place. I don't know.
It is. And, you know, Leos get a bad rap. They really do, because they're comfortable being in the spotlight and they enjoy being the focus of attention. People read that as ego or as an ego move. And it's just, it's different. It's simply a comfort with being exposed and being seen. And because the other signs, with the possible minor exceptions of Gemini and Aries, are so uncomfortable with being revealed, we tend to see that as an arrogance when it's not. It's just that ability to do that, but they also let that light shine on every part of them.
Yeah. And that's where the intensity comes from.
It is. And it's definitely intense.
Right. But even to qualify that as just different.
Yeah.
You know?
And we abhor different. We hate.
Everybody does.
We despise the different, and we despise when somebody can do something that we can't or that we're uncomfortable with.
Right. And this whole show, you know, as we're navigating these instances, you all, and I know I certainly am, table with like, wait a minute, okay, wait, I might be that way. And is it something that I want to change? Not even right or wrong, but does this make me uncomfortable, or, you know, do I keep going the way that I am?
And that's something that even went back to T and Crohn's, and we didn't really any of us see that coming, the way that the frank conversations we were having would impact us personally. And I'm excited that you and I can own that and move forward into that frontier. It's kind of a fearless move, and I enjoy that.
Yes, absolutely. And ownership. I mean, you said it, own your narrative.
Own your narrative. You are who you are. And you might have made I'm 60. Believe me, there's lots of room in 60 years to make profoundly shitty choices. And we do that. And it takes us to where we are. And we've got to be very frank about that. We don't have to write an expose in our blog about all the mistakes we've made, but we have to stand in our truth, is what I think I'm getting to.
Absolutely.
And this is also part of that narrative becomes, with this Leo spotlight, the opportunity to rebrand ourselves. Who are we now? And we have to accept that, like Maya Angelou said, we did what we knew to do, and when we knew better, we did better.
Absolutely.
And now that we're doing better, who are we now?
It's hard to when people talk about grounding and being present, like that's it. You know, acknowledge that even if you were angry 5 minutes ago, you can be a completely different person. And I know for my journey, it felt almost to sort of overdiagnosed, but almost like bipolar. I was worried. I was like, you know, do I need to actually get this analyzed? Because I'm moving through this very quickly. And it's not always that fast. Let me just say that. But when you start to accept that you can be different minute to minute, not just days and weeks and months, and with the large transformations, it could be a minor, you know, you walk through the door and all of a sudden the anger's lifted and you're like, wow, okay, I can breathe.
No, that's absolutely true. And one of the things I value most about you, Dahlia, is that you and I feel phenomenal reality checks for each other. And I value the fact that I can message and say, I need different eyes on this.
Yeah.
And can you show me the part of me that I need to see right now? And you're so good at that. And I just love that. And I appreciate that.
Well, the feeling is mutual. I mean, and again, your wisdom and expertise is unmatched. And the way that you hold space for me to just like
same. Yeah. Like sometimes my fingers won't type fast enough. And I can't even, I can never talk to you on this. I always have to be at a keyboard because I'm old and I'm trying to thumb text this shit. And look at tears, you know. Fix it, Dahlia, fix it. Make me smart again because I'm being stupid.
Oh no. I mean, meanwhile, I'm like, I need an egg scrub. Oh my God.
Yeah. And one of the parts of being vulnerable, number 2, is making sure you're not an island. And when we have been hurt many times, it's important. This isn't even on our 1 through 6, but when we've been hurt, we tend to isolate. We say, I'm never going to have a good friend again because my last 5 hurt me. But we really need to find people where we can be vulnerable like that and do the ugly cry and have them just rub our heads and say they're there. And
yeah.
And also to be on owning your narrative, to be very clear when you're doing that with somebody on what you need.
Right.
Do you want them to fix it? Do you want them to listen? Do you want them to give you a physical hug or comfort? Or what do you need right now? And if you don't know, just have them pick something.
Right. And that goes right. That's a dance, right? Because some people come to those conversations, you know, cocked and loaded with the solution. And you're like, wait a minute, I just wanted to talk.
Right.
I just want
don't fix this.
Right, don't touch me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna cry more if you touch me.
Back away with the wrench. This is a security blanket moment.
Right.
So the next one is terrifying. I think of all of the 6 that I came up with, this is second only to being vulnerable. And that is what really called to me this week, and we can talk about that when we get into the themes of the store and all that beyond Lionsgate, is step up. We are being pushed into, no, I think I want to pull back. I think I need more quiet time. No, that's not being tolerated right now. We are being called upon as leaders, as healers, as energy workers to blaze trails, create new avenues that haven't been explored before, and to show up and step up and give our best, not our quietest. We have to be screaming energy workers right now out there like these, you know, warriors on the front line who are just running into battle with a stick.
Yeah. I mean, and you're not kidding. I thought I thought I could kind of hide behind the scenes and like push people forward. And it's like, no. Meanwhile, Katrina's like, hey, YouTube channel. And I'm like, yes. Peeks from behind curtain.
Yeah.
I totally get that. Absolutely. Step up.
Step up. And we have to, this was a theme for me about 10 years ago when I felt like I was underperforming consistently.
Oh.
No matter what I did just enough to get by. And I felt like it was what my spirit needed. I just needed some downtime. I was immersed in raising kids. And I just was phoning it in.
Yeah.
And I made it a theme of my year, and that turned into 2 or 3 years of demand more from yourself. We can give and do more than we think that we can. And we
absolutely
got to step up.
Yes. I love that. And do you find that there's like a weird little contrast between like, you can feel that urge to step up, but you can also feel that urge to and desire to pull back. And it's just something that you come to say, hey, you know what? I just have to. I have to push. I have to do it with the fear intact.
But there's also that realism where you're looking at it going, I can't do another goddamn thing. I am tapped out. My schedule is full. And the universe is going, But wait, you should offer ionic foot baths in your practice.
Yes, make it easier for people to find you and add these 3 services
Correct.
specifically.
That's right. And also go on YouTube and make them like you.
Yeah. Oy.
Yeah, there's that. So the other thing is also difficult, but it's a little nicer to manage. And that is something I've been incorporating into my tapping sessions that I have I have group tapping sessions with EFT, getting people to overcome obstacles. And we do this at the beginning and we do this at the end sometimes. And that is say thank you, practice gratitude. And Leos are known for their generosity of spirit. They come off, as I said, people perceive them as egotistical, but Leos are one of the most kind, giving signs that you will ever approach.
Absolutely. Best boss I ever had was a Leo.
Oh, they're very generous natured on all levels, and they are very thankful for people that see them and connect with them and aren't afraid of the light that they bring to the stage. And so we have to embody that right now in this new moon and really take inventory of the things for which we're grateful and step into that and just say thank you. Literally, to the people who are doing things for them. Thank you, Dahlia, for being such an amazing friend, amazing co-host, and wonderful everything, fantastic healer. But we have to look at those people and really feel it from our hearts and say, thank you for being a good partner to me. Thank you for being a good son to me, a good mother to me, whatever it might be. Say the words, but also put it into your heart as well and breathe it into your body. Yes. Just think every day of 3 things you're grateful for and do some slow breathing while you put that into your heart.
I'm going to say it. Thank you, Katrina, for being an amazing mentor, for being there for me when I was literally falling apart on several different occasions, and for holding space and just sharing you. I mean, my life has been more than enriched with you. So thank you.
The next thing is the easiest of all of them, I think.
So we're on number 6?
We're done.
Okay.
We done. Okay. Number 6 is, I think, of all of these, and just to review very quickly, assess your commitments and galvanize your commitments and make sure you're in it to win it on everything you're doing. Be vulnerable, own your narrative, rebranding if you need to, being clear on your selling points, step up and blaze those trails, demand more of yourself, say thank you and be grateful. And the last thing is, get into your creative space. Leos are very creative, and Lionsgate woke up some things y'all need to do, and you need to step into that creativity. You're going to be unparalleled in what you're able to do next.
And there are those additional services you offer, and the universe chiming in. Yes. It's funny you mentioned that again. I mean, what is funny, but synchronicity. I failed to buy watercolors. And so I was like, why? Never in my life. So definitely, I wonder if you all in the comments, so we've had a couple of insights, people being tired and from this new moon energy. And I think that as we were talking about the intensity of Leo being just different, it may cause you to intensely look at those areas that we just mentioned and more that's going on in your life. And so, maybe that's where awareness is coming from. And it looks like we have a couple of Virgos in the audience empathizing. So
are they unbroken?
Haven't heard. Crickets, maybe not.
Yeah, sure. And it is exhausting, especially for people who are signs that cannot carry that full weight comfortably.
Yeah.
The mental download and the emotional and energetic download they're getting from that energy will be exhausting. Mm-hmm. And so you want to practice great self-care, drink plenty of water, get good sleep. And by all means, I preach this too much and people do not want to hear it. Get your ass off those screens and devices at least an hour or 2 before you go to bed.
Yep, absolutely. Hour or 2, maybe, at our store, we don't have Wi-Fi. I only plug in what's being used at the time. And we've been fortunate. We're probably going to have to transition because life. But I've noticed a difference with things being unplugged for extended periods of time. So you all in your homes might even just have a day where everything's unplugged and just let the house breathe. It's going to go.
Yes. Up
And
here
see
where
what
we
happens.
live in the mountains, we lose power a lot. We
Oh,
used to get between 10 and 15 feet of snow every winter, and not all at once, but accumulated through the winter. And we would have 5, 6, 8 feet of snow sometimes. And our power, of course, would go down, or somebody, the roads are bad, they slide, they hit a pole, power's out. And then the power
wow.
trucks have trouble getting up here to restore power. So we'll lose power for 3, 5 days sometimes. And when the power's out, we do have generators, so we can cook, our refrigerator can run, that sort of thing. But in those times where you're not running the generator, the stillness is palpable, and you can really feel that quiet and that aloneness that's there. And it's actually kind of wonderful.
It is kind of wonderful. And, I think to add to the stillness you're mentioning, what comes to my mind is how connected we are to the internet. So it's not just the electricity or the electronics, it is people that are attached to those things. Like just much like our
Yes.
collective consciousness, if you're dialed into the internet, you're dialed into everybody else who's on the internet too.
And
So,
information.
yeah.
As much as I love not having to run to a card catalog every time I want to know something, we are also not yet wired up ourselves to process the amount of information we get in a day.
No, ma'am, not
Yeah.
at all. Not at all. So for those of you in our comments section, I have successfully, surprisingly, just put in our little bullet points for our new moon themes. So
Check
go back
you.
and check the, I know, okay. So just as an astrologer, do you believe in cusps?
I do, but only because we have handshakes between the energies of those signs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that those who are born close to those handshakes do get the energy of both.
Okay, so I'm on the cusp of Leo. That's what I was looking.
Yeah, nice. This will be a good time for you. Or torturous, not sure.
Okay. A little bit of both. So then I put on the shiny shirt. So what about store themes? We never got into that.
Ouch. You go first. I've been talking a minute. I've got one that I want to talk about that relates fully to these 6, but let's give it some air and you tell me what's going on out in the East.
So at Crystalcognizance, one, I had a run of like particular signs. So we're on the astrology binge here. Scorpios, Tauruses, and Capricorns were at my door just falling apart this last
Wow.
week. And a lot of the themes revolved around the ways that they over support other people. And then, by the time they come back, they're embedded with, emotional shrapnel and shredded in certain areas. And so the theme seemed to come across like the overestimating your role in another person's life, right?
Wow. Ow. Yeah.
Well, I do it too, right? Like, we may try not to do the fixing piece, but sometimes inadvertently you get in and you can see the clear path, not realizing that the foggy path, if it does have stumbling blocks, those stumbling blocks may be because that person needs to slow down, instead of moving them through it very quickly.
There's speed bumps instead of stumbling.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, and should they cry out for help, then being there is wonderful. But these individuals, not and I don't mean individuals, these clusters of people, and it really was just those 3 signs in my shop this week, which was crazy. Also very passionate, also very intense, also a sense of responsibility for large groups of people even. So that was a theme. And I'd written some of these things down, but yeah, shouldering the burdens of others was really the largest theme of the week. I did have some conversations about karma and trying to reframe that karma is not punishment, because people tend to think that, well, wait a minute, I invested all these positive things, why didn't I get the return? Or surely I am paying for what I did when I was 2. That's like, well, I'm sure the universe has seen that many times and you probably have some grace in there. So having discussions around that, and this plays a little bit into manifestation conversations, and how a lot of folks who are just newly stepping into spirituality doing the pharmaceutical treatment of the things they want to manifest, or the changes they want to make to their life. It's buy the crystal. I mean, we talk about this all the time: buy the crystal, buy the candle, and you're basically doing catch-up magic instead of laying the groundwork for consistency that occasionally, and then you apply the pill, so to speak.
You know, people, it's sad, people don't come to us for help in the good times.
No.
And what I see so often is people come to us when their situation is very nearly irretrievable or irreparable, and then they want us to burn a candle and fix it, or give them a rock to fix it. And, you know, you don't call us when the boat springs a leak, you call us when the boat's sinking. And so then it becomes that we have disappointed them, because clearly magic doesn't work. But I was really relating to some of the things you were saying as far as things going on with us as well. I felt a real sting when you talked about overestimating the role, which is a little different than what it came out in my head. I have a tendency to overestimate my own value to other people.
Oh, okay.
And so I have the value that I've imposed on a friendship or a person that's in my life. I get really invested and excited. And then I realize abruptly through a conversation or a drifting away or whatever, that I was not as valuable to them emotionally as they were to me. And that's always really painful for me to see that I overestimated who I was to them. And I've had some recurring experiences with that within the last 2 years, especially. But when you're talking about karma, I had the same conversations actually. And with one guy in particular, one client, he was having none of it. When I was trying to explain it to him, he was not on board with my interpretation of karma, which is the universe isn't just sitting around waiting for you to screw up so that it can slap you with some sort of punitive thing. And that applies both ways, in that the people who have wronged you, you know, people will come in and say, well, I just want them, they're going to get their karma. They're going to get their karmic return. And I'm saying, you know, maybe they won't in the way that you think they're going to.
Right.
And karma's subjective.
Right.
It's not a process. It's not a perfect process according to who you think should be blamed and how they should be punished. And oh, it's going to come around because they did a bad thing. That's not how it works. It's about cause and effect.
Yep. And accountability, which leads right into what I was going to say. Guilt plays a huge role. You know, this is why a lot of quote unquote bad people can get away with things or seemingly have no issues. If they feel guilty about what they're doing, then there's nothing to return. And then you have the other extreme, which they feel guilty about everything, and it just draws that energy up.
You're so right. This is an ongoing, huge philosophical debate between myself and Eric, my partner, my husband, my everything. Eric believes that there is a baseline of good or appropriate behavior that permeates all cultures.
Okay.
And he believes that people who do not adhere to that are going to be karmically punished. And I don't go that direction. I believe that what's good or what's bad or what's ethically appropriate or inappropriate shifts constantly.
Right.
We've watched it shift all through history. We've watched things that we now believe are inappropriate be perfectly acceptable hundreds of years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
And without anybody thinking anything about it or ever feeling guilty about it. And I am just of the belief that you nailed it when you said guilt, that if you know you did wrong, I believe you're going to draw to you experiences that balance that scale.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you don't do something to atone, to acknowledge and atone for what you did, which helps to also balance the scales. But then we have people with, I guess you'd call mental defects or breakdowns of understanding of right and wrong, who do wrong things all the time and don't feel bad about it. How does that come into play?
Right.
And so it's this huge conversation that goes more than just, oh, karma's going to get them. You know what? By your standards, maybe it sure isn't. And for you to depend on that.
Right. For your resolution. And the other, I love the word faulty. The other faulty piece of this is that there are actually 5 different kinds of karma. And 4 of them can be resolved. 1 can't, if you are of that belief and culture. So it's not as simple as karma will get them, but which one are you dealing with? And to dive deep into that is it's an expenditure of energy that may not be necessary, because like you said, if you go into that atonement space, then you may feel a shift yourself and never see the results of it. And that's the end. Eric's theory is interesting about culture, because I think that taps into the collective belief. And like you were saying, I mean, child brides were a thing for a long time. Right. And there are plenty of people that passed on with no ramifications of doing those things.
The example he gives, for instance, is all the way back to biblical times. It's known that the general consensus is you should not steal from other people.
Right.
That most people agree that should not happen. Most people agree that unless it's a situation where that is approved, you shouldn't attempt to sexually interact with somebody who's in a committed relationship, or to violate vows or whatever you might say if you are in a committed relationship. He just believes that there are certain standards that overall humans agree should be how it is. And so he has a good argument when you talk to him. I can't effectively relay that because I don't agree with it.
But there's so much gray still. I mean, you don't steal somebody's property, but my most valuable asset and precious thing to me is my time. So it's still theft, in my opinion.
Yeah, very true. And what I see in my shop is that people throw the word karma around when they want to see somebody punished who is taking advantage of them or wronging them without them actually having to do anything to make that happen. I believe that sometimes we are an agent of karma and accountability by standing up and making someone accountable for, hey, you hurt me. Hey, you're taking advantage of me, so I'm going to set this boundary. You were taking advantage of me before, and once you started doing that and I knew it, it was my fault because I allowed it to happen. People don't want to do that. They don't want in on that much activity regarding defending themselves in their space.
This navigates us into a touchy topic in our community, and I'm saying R as filing both witchcraft, Wicca, spirituality, metaphysics. They say, that we attract certain circumstances, right? Mm-hmm. We attract circumstances where we need to heal. And I've noticed a visceral reaction from severely traumatized individuals, talking assaults, rape, brutalized, abused in some way, physically, visibly, or even emotionally, because that's a scar that never heals either.
Sure.
Um, and them saying, how could you say that? Like, why would I attract this circumstance? And I always end up having the conversation about soul contracts. And if that's a topic somebody wants to dive into, don't ask me, go read Carolyn Mace's book called Sacred Contracts. But who's to say you didn't organize, and this is my theory, so don't get butthurt, but who's to say you didn't organize a moment to meet that individual and give them an opportunity to choose differently?
Mhm.
So, not to bring this into a super personal space, but I know that in one of my most severe assaults, I can recognize the moment where I contracted with this person to be assertive, to speak up to myself for myself, to not allow my personal space to be crossed. And for that person, it was, they do it all the time. This is an opportunity for them to not, and to choose different. And neither things happened. I was wounded. That person did what they did. And, so I can take ownership. And my healing actually came through moments where I said no to small circumstances like, hey, no, I don't want this thing from Amazon that I actually ordered. I'm going to send it back. Or no, you can't have my time. And it would build and it would build and it would build. But it first had to come with the recognition of my power, not to say that I attracted that circumstance and whatever, but what power do I have, instead of reflecting on what I don't have?
I think that's very wise. And the bottom line on all of that is people desperately want their misfortune to make sense on some level.
Yeah.
Or to serve some higher good or higher power, or they want to desperately to have the people who harmed them to atone and to create balance, or at least to understand how they harmed them. And those are Herculean wishes. They're huge. And I think our best thing to do is to just work desperately to manage our own recovery, to be the best people that we can be, to stop anything that we are doing that attracts those situations in.
Yeah.
For instance, I had a client once that kept asking, why are all the people that I date alcoholics? Why do I keep drawing in people who are alcoholics? And I said, because you pick them up in bars.
Right.
Sometimes it's so obvious what's happening here. And I'm not saying you wore a short skirt, you deserve to get raped. It's not that. But there might be things in some circumstances where we are setting up those wheels into motion. For instance, one of my own is because I, in prior times of my life, didn't value myself enough to see the worth of what I was bringing to a relationship. When I met someone I wanted to be friends with, or I met somebody I wanted to be romantically involved with, I overextended myself with giving and being there and being present and mothering and doing for, and everything I could give, I gave, when that wasn't sustainable. So it created this dynamic of them receiving and me giving, and them receiving and me giving. And no, I'm fine. I don't need you to do that. No, I don't need to be cared for. I am the giver. And that became my worth. But quickly you burn out and you've got nothing left to give and you resent.
Yep.
And so I was setting up the very thing I didn't want to have happen.
Yep. And it always leads to that resentful road, no matter how many times.
It does. So speaking of which, that brings me to the next theme of two themes of Crossroads. One is Carnelian. Holy cow. I don't know what blew up on TikTok.
Oh, I can tell you.
But I am constantly having to replenish the Carnelian. So go.
So with the Carnelian, actually I had 3 clients on one day about a week ago. It was the Carnelian craze. And every now and again, I get requests. So I did have to do an order as well. So basically what happened was somebody got on YouTube, actually. I don't think it was TikTok. It might have been TikTok. I don't know. I don't do all the social medias. And so they said that based on their buying Carnelian, that they started having opportunities flow and
Good for
to,
that.
boyfriends wanting to be in their space and, all these things occurring very rapidly for them. And so this is being shared with me. And I said, well, that's because Carnelian helps you with decision making. It gives you the courage to commit. It's a sacral chakra stone. That's our creative space, and it's our sexuality. So everything she said happened because she had a block there, not because it's Carnelian is not going to respond the same way for everybody. And I am very concerned that this is going to turn into the Moldavite craze.
But that Carnelian, everything you just described about Carnelian also is inherent in that Lionsgate Leo new moon.
There you go.
That's perfect timing.
Yeah.
The other thing, and I don't want to end us on a downer note because it actually turned out to be very good, is this week was really challenging in our shop. Suddenly we had, now we have amazing people come into our shop. They're just phenomenal. But we had this sudden flow, despite all wards, despite the brick dust, despite everything going on, of extremely mentally disjointed people coming in. And I mean, to the far out extreme, not as in I'm struggling with depression. I've got borderline personality disorder. I've got, the people are normally very upfront about what they're experiencing, but I'm talking people who are profoundly schizophrenic and are not here with us in the store having this conversation, and they are not reachable. And it was very unnerving. And when that happens every now and then in a metaphysical store, we're like, yeah, that's nature of the game. But it was Pez. Wow. I mean, they just kept popping out. And I had a homeless guy set up a hammock in my tree in my parking lot and make an encampment below it with his really cool elderly dog. And that wouldn't have been so bad. We have a lot of homeless in our area. They know they can come sit on our deck if it's hot out. It's not, I've got a homeless guy that lives in a bush next to my shop. All he does is like vomit now and then and sell drugs out of the bush. So, there's stuff that happens there that we're aware of, and we don't hassle anybody. But this guy is in the middle of my parking lot, young guy, in a hammock with his dog and all of his gear, and he's bothering the customers for cigarettes constantly. He tried to give my son pot as my son left, and so we had to do things to ask him to not be there, and he was uncomfortable with being asked not to be there. And the sheriffs that came out I wanted to make sure that they were very kind. Yeah. And they were, and he was arguing with them, and he started screaming, help, 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 because they're having to handcuff him because he was getting violent. Oh my God. It was a really disturbing situation. And Eric was in New Jersey. So I was at the shop alone, had a shop full of people, and it was extremely uncomfortable. And we had a rush of very entitled people. Well, you have to see me right now. I have a problem right now. No, I'm telling you, you're going to see me right now. And it came to the point of us really deliberating, is that we don't necessarily need the money. Why are we doing this? Why do we keep this shop open? Wow. Why are we going through this when we could go way up on our mountain, close our doors? Our last child of 6 just moved out last month. We could be alone in our little house. We could finally have a honeymoon. We could have, a quiet life without all this madness suddenly going on. Why are we doing this? What is our motivation here? And true to Lionsgate and Leo Moon, we prayed about it. We asked, show us a theme, a new theme that tells us why we're doing this. And for the next 2 days of the week, everybody that walked in the door talked about community. They all said, I'm so happy you built this community here. Even people that had never been there said, I'm so happy to have found a community. I'm so happy that you have all these classes. I'm so happy you're here. I didn't know you were here. And that got us back into the demanding more of ourselves part of, we have to do this because this is something people need. And we need to be able to withstand anything that comes up in order to keep this going. So it ultimately was a good thing, but wow, what a crisis of faith. It was really painful. So that's my jam-packed story, into just a little bit of time that, it was hard. It was terrible.
It goes right back to number one, which was assess your commitments.
Yes. Yes.
And even dialed into our conversation, our brief conversation on karma, we have more control than we realize. At the very least, when you come to the table and you have a challenge, you can ask, how do I navigate through this? Is there an alternative path? Show us something different, as Katrina said, which was so powerful. I love that. I'm going to add that to my questions. Show me something different so that I know. I usually just crumble, and then the universe goes, okay, she's in the fetal position, send the people.
We were broken down. And when you get that low, that's all you do have is give me a different message, show me a different perspective that I can take forward. And so if you look at our 6, evaluate your commitments, have a spine and a heart. You've got to use those together. Be vulnerable, be willing to be hurt, harmed, scared. Own your story, own how you got there, step up and do better. Blaze those trails, say thank you for where you are, and get creative about how you're going to manage it. And we were just really fortunate that we were able to push each other to that point.
Yeah. Well, and even choosing to say, show us something different is a creative act in itself. Yeah. Because you're not asking for the straightforward, just get rid of these people. It's, how do we navigate through? And that's community.
Yeah.
I love it.
Right.
Man, this has been jam-packed. I think we had like 8 different conversations in one.
I wish we had another half hour. Hi, Eric.
So that was our show for today, guys. Oh, he's so handsome.
He's all right.
So that was our show for tonight. Thank you again for joining us. We had a lot of group interaction. I'm so glad to see you guys in the comments, empathizing with us, being here with us. That's what community is about. Remember, you can reach out to us too to let us know what's going on with you, what you'd like to hear about. But other than that, we will put this back in the fridge until next Monday.
We will be here with another report on what's happening in the East, what's happening in the West, and you all have to tell us what's happening in between.
All right. Have a great night, guys.
Take care.